So my future mother-in-law tried to buy me off like I was some inconvenience she could just write a check to make disappear. $50,000. That was apparently my price tag. That was what she decided I was worth to get out of her precious son's life forever. I'm still so angry, I can barely type this. Quick background because I know you all need context. I'm 29. My fiancé Damien is 31. We've been together for almost 4 years. The wedding is supposed to be in 5 months. Was supposed to be. I don't even know anymore. Damien is genuinely one of the best people I've ever met. After the parade of mediocre men I dated in my early 20s, finding someone who treats me like an actual human being felt like winning some kind of lottery. His family, though. That's where things get complicated. His mom, Teresa, has never loved me. I knew this from pretty much day one, but I kept telling myself it would get better. She just needed time to warm up. She was protective of her son. Whatever excuse I could find. She's one of those women who thinks her son is God's gift to the world, and no woman will ever be good enough. Every girlfriend before me apparently had issues, according to the stories she tells. Too clingy, too independent, too ambitious, not ambitious enough. There's always something. With me, though, it was different. She was polite to my face for the first year or so. Cold but polite. Then Damien and I moved in together and something shifted. She started making comments, little digs here and there, about how I decorated our apartment, about what I cooked, about how I let Damien do certain things like she needed to approve of our dynamic. I brushed it off because Damien always shut her down when she got too bold, and I figured that was enough. Then we got engaged and Teresa absolutely lost her mind. She cried at the announcement dinner. Not happy tears, actual devastated sobbing like someone had died. She pulled herself together eventually and blamed it on being overwhelmed with joy. But I saw her face when Damien showed her the ring. That wasn't joy. The wedding planning has been a nightmare. She has an opinion about everything. The venue is wrong. The colors are tacky. The guest list needs to include her entire extended family even though half of them I've never met. She tried to come dress shopping with me, and when I said I wanted it to be just my mom and my best friend Miriam, she acted like I'd personally attacked her. Damien keeps trying to manage her, but it's exhausting for both of us. So when she texted me 2 weeks ago asking if I wanted to get lunch, just the two of us, because she wanted to get closer before the wedding, I was actually kind of hopeful. Stupid, right? I thought maybe she was finally coming around. Maybe she realized she'd been difficult and wanted to make an effort. Damien was thrilled when I told him. He said maybe this was the turning point. The turning point. Ha, ha, ha. She picked this upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place with cloth napkins and a wine list the size of a novel. I wore a nice dress, did my makeup, tried to look like the kind of daughter-in-law she might actually want. God, I'm embarrassed just thinking about how much effort I put in for someone who was about to try to pay me to disappear. We sat down and she ordered wine without asking what I wanted, which fine, whatever, that's just how she is. She made small talk for maybe 3 minutes. Asked about work, asked if we'd finalized the photographer, normal stuff. Then she pulled out her checkbook. Just casually set it on the table between us like we were about to split the bill. I'll pay you $50,000 to walk away from my son. I actually laughed. I thought she was making some kind of weird joke I didn't understand, but she wasn't smiling. She had this look on her face like she was conducting a business transaction, like she'd done the math and decided this was a reasonable offer. She kept talking, said she'd done research on me, on my medical condition, said she knew I couldn't give Damien children and that made me defective. That word, defective. Like I was a broken appliance she was trying to return. She said her son deserved a woman who could give him a real family, not someone who was incomplete. I need to pause here because I know some of you are going to ask about the medical condition. I have something that makes it essentially impossible for me to get pregnant naturally. I found out when I was 23 and it was devastating. I went through all the stages, grief, anger, denial, the whole thing. It took me years to come to terms with the fact that biological children probably weren't in my future, and that didn't make me less of a woman. Damien knows everything. I told him on our 5th date because I didn't want to waste either of our time if it was a deal breaker for him. He said it wasn't. He said he'd always been open to adoption anyway. We've talked about it extensively. We've researched agencies. We have a whole timeline for after the wedding. This isn't something I sprung on him or hid from him. He chose this. He chose me knowing exactly what our future would look like. But Teresa sitting there telling me I was defective, telling me I couldn't give her son a real family. Like adopted children aren't real. Like the family Damien and I are building together isn't valid because it won't look exactly like hers did. I told her Damien already knew, that we'd discussed everything, that we planned to adopt. She actually laughed. This condescending little chuckle that made me want to throw my water in her face. She said, "Oh, honey," called me honey, like I was some naive child she was trying to enlighten. She said Damien was just being polite, that he felt sorry for me, that no man actually wants damaged goods long-term, and I should take the money before he realized he was settling. Damaged goods. She called me damaged goods. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. The whole restaurant was staring at us, but I did not care. I told her she was delusional if she thought her son was settling for me. I told her she didn't know a damn thing about our relationship. I told her to keep her $50,000 because I wasn't for sale. She just sat there holding that check looking at me like I was making a scene for no reason. Like she hadn't just tried to pay me off like I was some problem she could throw money at. She had the audacity to look embarrassed. Not ashamed, embarrassed. Like I was the one causing problems by not quietly accepting her bribe and disappearing from her life. I walked out, left her sitting there with her fancy wine and her checkbook and her disgusting opinions about my worth as a human being. I was shaking the entire drive to Damien's office. I kept replaying what she said. Defective. Damaged goods. No man actually wants you. Settling. All of it just spinning in my head, making me feel sick and furious at the same time. I didn't even call ahead, just showed up. The receptionist knows me, so she let me back and I found Damien in his office, and the second he looked at my face, he knew something was seriously wrong. He jumped up asking what happened, was I okay? Did something happen? And I just started talking. Told him everything word for word. The $50,000, the checkbook, the research she'd done on my medical history, defective, damaged goods, the part about him settling for me because he felt sorry for me. His face changed as I was talking. Went from concerned to confused to absolutely furious. I've never seen him that angry. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. He grabbed his phone and called her right there. Put it on speaker. She answered all cheerful. Hi, sweetie, how's your day going? Like she hadn't just tried to bribe his fiancé out of his life an hour ago. He didn't even let her finish. Just went, what the fuck is wrong with you? She tried to play dumb at first. What do you mean? Why are you yelling? What's going on? But Damien wasn't having it. He told her he knew everything. That I was sitting right there. That he'd heard every single thing she said to me at that restaurant. And you know what she did? She didn't apologize. She didn't try to deny it. She doubled down. She started going on about how she was just trying to protect him. How she did what any good mother would do. How I'd trapped him with my sob story about not being able to have children, and she was trying to give him an out before it was too late. She said she loved him too much to watch him throw his life away on someone who couldn't give him what he deserved. Damien was yelling. He told her I didn't trap him. He told her he knew about my condition before we even got serious, and he chose to be with me anyway. He told her she had no right to make decisions about his life, or try to pay off his future wife like she was some kind of problem to be solved. She started crying. Of course she did. That's her move whenever Damien pushes back too hard. The tears come out, and suddenly she's the victim. But this time he didn't back down. He told her what she did was unforgivable. He told her she owed me an apology, a real one, and she said she would never apologize for loving her son and trying to protect his future. He hung up on her, just ended the call mid-sentence while she was still crying and trying to explain herself. We sat in his office for probably an hour after that. He kept apologizing for her, kept saying he couldn't believe she would do something like this, kept saying he was going to handle it. But here's the thing that's eating at me, and I need someone to tell me if I'm being crazy here. While we were talking, his phone kept buzzing. His dad, Harold, kept calling. His sister, Annabelle, kept texting. Teresa had clearly contacted everyone in the family the second Damien hung up on her and was spinning her version of events before we could say anything. Annabelle's texts were asking what happened and saying their mom was hysterical and claiming I had attacked her at the restaurant. Attacked her. I stood up and walked out. That's the attack, apparently. Damien finally called his dad back and put it on speaker, too. Harold was trying to play peacemaker, saying everyone needed to calm down, saying there were two sides to every story, and maybe we should all sit down together and talk this through like adults. Damien asked if his dad knew what Teresa had done. If he knew she'd offered me $50,000 to leave. There was this long pause. And then Harold said, well, she mentioned she'd had a conversation with you about the future. A conversation about the future. That's how they were framing it. Like his wife hadn't called me defective and damaged goods. Like she hadn't tried to buy me off. A conversation about the future. Damien lost it again. Told his dad exactly what his mother said to me word for word, the defective comment, the damaged goods, the settling, all of it. Harold got quiet. Then he said, well, you know how your mother gets. She's just worried about grandchildren. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. She called me broken. She said no man would actually want me. She offered me money to disappear from her son's life. How exactly was I supposed to interpret that? Damien told his dad he needed to think about things and hung up. That was 5 days ago. Since then, it's been absolute chaos. Teresa has been texting Damien constantly, not apologizing, just explaining, over and over, paragraphs about how she was just trying to help, how she didn't mean to hurt anyone, how she only wants what's best for him, how adoption isn't the same as having your own children and she just wants him to have the life he deserves. She hasn't texted me once, hasn't tried to apologize to me at all, just keeps trying to get Damien to understand her perspective. Annabelle called me yesterday. She was trying to be nice about it, but basically asked if I could let this go for the sake of family peace. She said their mom made a mistake, but she comes from a different generation and doesn't always say things the right way. She asked if maybe I was being a little too sensitive about the whole thing. Too sensitive. Someone called me defective and damaged goods and tried to pay me to leave, and I'm being too sensitive. I told Annabelle that her mother owed me an apology, and until I got one, I had nothing else to say. She sighed like I was being difficult and said she hoped I'd reconsider because this was tearing the family apart. I am not the one who tore this family apart. Your mother did that when she decided I wasn't good enough for her son because of my medical condition. Damien firmly on my side. He's barely speaking to his mother. He told his dad and sister that there's no both sides here and that until Teresa genuinely apologizes to me for what she said, he's not interested in playing happy family. But there's always a but, isn't there? His parents' anniversary party is next weekend. It's been planned for months. Huge thing at this venue his dad rented out. Extended family coming from out of state. The whole production. Harold called Damien last night saying he still expects us to come, that skipping the party would be making a statement and escalating the situation unnecessarily. He said Teresa was willing to move past this, if I was. Willing to move past this. Not willing to apologize. Not willing to admit she was wrong. Just willing to move past it. Like I should just forget she called me broken and tried to buy me off because there's a party to attend. Damien told his dad we'd think about it. After he hung up, we talked for hours about what to do. He said he'd support whatever I decided. If I didn't want to go, he wouldn't go either. If I wanted to go and hold my head high, he'd be right next to me. He said this was my call. I don't know what the right move is here. Part of me wants to show up looking amazing and act like nothing happened just to show Teresa she can't intimidate me. Part of me thinks going would be letting her win. Letting her think she can treat me like garbage and I'll still show up and play nice for appearances. And part of me, the part I'm most afraid of, is starting to wonder if marrying into this family is worth it. I love Damien. I really do. He's been nothing but supportive through all of this. He's choosing me over his family, and I know how hard that must be for him. But I'm looking at the next 40 or 50 years of my life and imagining holidays with Teresa. Family gatherings where she's there. Her being a grandmother to our adopted children while probably treating them differently than her real grandchildren from Annabelle. Is love enough to put up with a mother-in-law who thinks you're defective? I keep going back and forth. One minute I'm ready to fight for my relationship and tell Teresa to go to hell. The next minute I'm wondering if I should have taken the check and saved myself decades of this bullshit. Damien doesn't know I'm having these doubts. I don't want to hurt him by saying his family is making me reconsider everything, but I can't stop thinking about it. His mom hasn't just insulted me. She's shown me exactly who she is and how she sees me. And I don't think that's ever going to change no matter how many fake apologies she might eventually give. The anniversary party is in 6 days. Damien is waiting for me to decide if we're going. His family is pressuring him to make this right, which apparently means getting me to shut up and play along. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. What would you do? Top comments. Commenter 1. Girl run. I'm serious. This is about the next 40 years of your life. Holidays with this woman, birthdays, your future kids' events. She just showed you exactly who she is and what she thinks of you. Damien seems great, but he came from her. She raised him. And his dad already minimizing it? His sister asking you to let it go? This whole family is broken and you're about to sign up to be part of it forever. The trash took itself out, don't go digging in the dumpster. Commenter 2. Okay, I'm gonna get downvoted to hell, but someone needs to ask this. Are you sure Damien didn't know this was coming? His mom clearly planned this whole thing. She picked the restaurant. She had the checkbook ready. She'd done research. Is it possible he knew she was going to talk to you and just didn't know how far she'd go? I'm not saying he's in on it, but these things don't happen in a vacuum. Mom doesn't just wake up one day and decide to offer 50 grand to make the girlfriend disappear. Ops response. I thought about this too, and honestly, no. When I told him what happened, his face went through genuine shock. He's not that good of an actor. And when he called her and started screaming, that wasn't performative. That was real rage. But you're right that she'd been planning this, which means she'd been thinking about how to get rid of me for months, maybe years, while smiling at me at family dinners. First update. Okay, I'm back. And you guys were right about so many things and wrong about others, and honestly, I don't even know where to start because the last 9 days have been an absolute roller coaster that I wasn't prepared for at all. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post because I read every single one of them. The ones telling me to run, the ones telling me to fight, the ones calling Teresa names I can't repeat here. And I needed all of it because what happened next tested everything I thought I knew about this family and about myself. So let me tell you about the anniversary party, because that's where everything escalated in ways I didn't see coming. Damien and I went back and forth for days about whether we should even show up, and I was leaning towards skipping it entirely until I talked to Miriam about it. She came over with wine 2 nights before the party, and we sat on my couch while I vented for hours about everything that had happened. And her perspective actually changed my mind. She said not showing up would be letting Teresa win because then she'd spend the whole night playing victim and telling everyone I was the dramatic one causing problems in the family. But if I showed up looking incredible and acted like nothing she said affected me, that would be the real power move. She said the best revenge against someone who wants you to disappear is being visible and unbothered, and honestly that made sense to me, even though part of me just wanted to hide. Damien agreed when I told him what Miriam said, and he added that he wanted his extended family to see us together, to see that whatever his mother tried to do hadn't worked, and that we were solid. So I spent way too long getting ready, found this dark green dress I'd been saving for a special occasion, did my hair and makeup properly, and told myself that if I was walking into enemy territory, I was going to look damn good doing it. The party was at this event space Harold had rented out, and there were probably 70 people there when we arrived. Extended family I'd never met, family friends, neighbors, and the whole place was decorated with photos of Harold and Teresa through the years showing their wedding and vacations, and Damien and Annabelle as kids. 35 years of marriage displayed on poster boards around the room like a shrine to their perfect life. Teresa saw us walk in, and I watched her face change for just a second. This flash of something that looked like annoyance that I'd actually shown up when maybe she'd been hoping I wouldn't. And she was wearing cream and pearls with her hair done looking like the perfect hostess celebrating her perfect marriage, while I stood there knowing what she'd said to me just days ago. She didn't come over to greet us, but Harold did, giving Damien a hug and then turning to me with this awkward half hug while he said he was glad we came and hoped tonight could be about family coming together, which I thought was rich considering his wife had called me defective and tried to pay me off. But I just smiled tightly and let Damien guide me further into the room without saying anything because what was I supposed to say? Thanks for pretending your wife didn't try to buy me like I was some problem she could throw money at. The first hour was almost bearable because we talked to Damien's aunt and uncle who were visiting from Portland, and met some cousins I'd only heard about before, and ate tiny appetizers and drank champagne, while Teresa stayed on the other side of the room the entire time. We were orbiting each other without ever getting close enough to actually have to interact, and I thought maybe I could get through the whole night like this, just avoiding her while looking happy and in love with her son. But then dinner happened, and of course there was assigned seating. And of course Teresa had put us at the main family table with her and Harold and Annabelle and her husband Vincent, right in the center of the room where everyone could watch us like we were performing some kind of happy family show for the guests. Dinner was excruciating in a way that's hard to describe, because Teresa talked to everyone at the table except me, asking Damien about work, asking Annabelle about her kids, asking Vincent about his golf game, and every single time she needed to address the whole table, her eyes would just slide right past me like I was invisible, like there was an empty chair where I was sitting. I kept my mouth shut and ate my chicken and drank my wine and reminded myself that Miriam said the power move was acting like Teresa was irrelevant to my happiness, but it's hard to feel powerful when someone is treating you like you don't exist in front of their entire family. Then Harold stood up to make a toast and he started talking about 35 years of marriage and partnership and building a life together and blah blah blah. And then he said he was grateful for his children and the families they were building, mentioned Annabelle and Vincent and their 2 kids, and then said he was excited to welcome their future daughter-in-law, and he hoped I knew I was already part of the family despite any challenges we might face. Challenges. That's what he called his wife offering me $50,000 to disappear and calling me defective and damaged goods. A challenge. Like it was some minor speed bump on the road to family harmony and not his wife telling me I was broken and no man would actually want me long-term. But that wasn't even the worst part because Teresa stood up after him and said she wanted to add a few words. And she looked right at me for the first time all night while she started talking about how important family was to her, how she'd spent her whole life building this family and protecting it, how she wasn't always perfect, but everything she did came from a place of love. Then she said being a mother meant making hard choices and that she would do anything for her children, that sometimes love meant protecting them even when they didn't understand. She was talking about me, justifying what she did to me in front of 70 people without actually saying what she did, making herself sound like some devoted mother when she'd tried to bribe her son's fiancé to disappear because she thought I was defective. I felt Damien grab my hand under the table and I could tell he was as tense as I was, but we both just sat there while she finished her little performance and everyone clapped like she'd said something beautiful, instead of something that made me want to flip the table. After the toasts, I told Damien I needed some air and went outside to this little patio area behind the venue where I could breathe without feeling like everyone was watching me. I'd been out there maybe 5 minutes, just staring at the parking lot and trying to calm down, when Teresa came outside and walked over to me slowly like she was just getting some fresh air too, standing next to me and looking out at the cars like we were 2 people who might have a pleasant conversation. She said she was glad I came tonight, that it showed I was mature enough to put family first, and she hoped we could put our little disagreement behind us and move forward. Our little disagreement, that's what she called it. I turned to look at her and asked if she was serious, if she really thought what she did was a little disagreement, because she called me defective. She offered me $50,000 to leave her son. She said I was damaged goods and no man would actually want me long-term. And that's not a little disagreement, that's someone trying to destroy your sense of worth as a human being. She did this thing with her face like she was being patient with a difficult child, and said she was sorry I took her words so personally, but she was just being honest about her concerns, and any mother would have concerns about her son marrying someone who couldn't give him children. It wasn't personal, it was just practical. Practical. Like my inability to have biological children was some kind of inconvenience she was reasonably pointing out and not something I'd already grieved and processed and come to terms with years before I even met her son. I told her Damien knew everything about my condition before we got serious, that he chose to be with me knowing all of it, and that we're planning to adopt and he's excited about it because unlike her, he doesn't think biology is the only thing that makes a family. And that's when she said something that made me want to scream because she said adoption wasn't the same, that adopted children were never really yours, that there would always be this distance and difference and eventually it would affect our marriage. She said she'd seen it happen with friends of hers who adopted, that the kids always felt like outsiders and the parents always wondered about the real parents and it created problems that biological families never had to deal with. And she said this with such certainty like she was sharing wisdom instead of ignorance. I told her that was complete bullshit. that adopted kids are real kids and plenty of adoptive families are just as close and loving as biological ones. And she shook her head like I was young and naive and didn't understand how the world actually worked. She said Damien might think he was okay with adoption now, but in 10 years when Annabelle's kids were running around and he had no biological connection to his own children, he would feel it, he would regret it, and he would resent me for putting him in that position. She said men say what women want to hear, and Damien was kind and didn't want to hurt me, but deep down he wanted what every man wanted, a legacy. Children who looked like him and carried his genes, and I was selfish for denying him that. Selfish. She called me selfish for not being able to have children, for a medical condition I didn't choose and would change if I could. I told her she didn't know her son at all if she thought he was just telling me what I wanted to hear, because Damien was the one who brought up adoption first, who researched agencies, who got excited about building our family that way. But she actually laughed and said of course he did all that because he's a good man making the best of a bad situation. But given the choice between a woman who could have his children and one who couldn't, well, biology was biology. I was shaking at this point, told her she needed to stop, that her opinion didn't matter, that Damien and I were getting married whether she liked it or not. And she got quiet for a second before she said she'd hoped the money would be enough, that I would take the easy way out and everyone could move on. But since I was determined to stay, she wanted me to understand something. She said she would never accept our adopted children as her real grandchildren, not fully, that Annabelle's kids would always come first because they were actually her blood, and she said she wouldn't pretend otherwise because I should know that going into this marriage. She said if I married her son, our children would grow up knowing they were second class in this family. I just stared at her because this woman was standing there calmly telling me she would treat my future children as less than, that she would make them feel like they didn't fully belong. And she was saying it like it was just a fact of life I needed to accept. I told her she was a terrible person and no child deserved to be treated that way. And if she couldn't love all her grandchildren equally, then she didn't deserve to be in any of their lives. She said that was my choice to make, but I should think about what it would mean for Damien, keeping his children away from their grandmother and creating that divide in the family. And she said I would be the one tearing the family apart, not her. Then she walked back inside like the conversation was over, and I was left standing there trying to figure out how someone could be so cruel and so calm about it at the same time. When I went back inside, I found Damien and pulled him into a hallway near the bathrooms where nobody could hear us, and told him everything his mother just said, about never accepting our adopted kids, about Annabelle's children always coming first, about our future children being second class in this family. His face went through about 15 different emotions, confusion and anger and disbelief and pain, and he kept saying she didn't mean it, she was just trying to get under my skin, she wouldn't actually treat children that way. But I asked him if he really believed that after everything she'd already done, after calling me defective and damaged goods, did he really think she was bluffing about how she would treat our kids? And he didn't have an answer for me, which was an answer in itself. We left the party early, making some excuse about me not feeling well, and the car ride home was quiet except for Damien apologizing over and over and saying he would talk to her and make her understand and fix this somehow. But I kept thinking about what she said, that she would never fully accept our children, that they would always know they were less than their cousins, and I couldn't figure out how you fix something like that, how you change someone who genuinely believes biology determines worth. The next few days were tense because Damien kept trying to call his mother, and she either didn't answer or gave him short responses about being busy with party cleanup. And he texted her asking when they could talk, but she kept putting him off like she knew what was coming and wanted to delay it as long as possible. Meanwhile, Annabelle started texting me, first just checking in and asking how I was feeling since I'd left the party early, and then asking if something happened between me and her mom on the patio, because she said their mom had been acting strange since the party, quieter than usual, like she was thinking about something or planning something. I debated whether to tell Annabelle anything because she'd been dismissive before and asked me to let things go and said I was being too sensitive, and I didn't know if I could trust her to actually hear what I was saying instead of defending her mother. But I was also desperate to understand this family better, to figure out if Teresa was always like this or if there was some history I didn't know about. So I told Annabelle we should meet up, and we got lunch the next day at this restaurant near her place. I told her what happened on the patio, what her mom said about adoption, about never accepting our children as real grandchildren, about them always being second class, and Annabelle got really quiet and stared at her food for a long time before she finally said she wasn't surprised. She said growing up, their mom always had really specific ideas about family and blood and legacy, that she came from one of those families where who you were related to mattered more than who you were as a person, where family trees and lineage were discussed at holidays like it was important information everyone needed to know. She said their mom had made comments before, years ago, when a family friend adopted a baby, something about how it was charitable but not the same as having your own, that the kid would always feel different and wouldn't really be part of the family legacy. And Annabelle had disagreed at the time, but their mom just brushed it off and said she was being modern and idealistic, and would understand differently when she had her own children. I asked Annabelle what she thought about all of it, if she agreed with her mom, if she would treat our adopted kids differently than her own biological children, and she said no, absolutely not, that kids were kids and family was family and biology didn't determine love. But then she said something that made me nervous, because she said even though she disagreed with their mom, she also understood where it came from, that their mom wasn't evil, She was just old-fashioned and had certain beliefs about family that were hard to shake. And maybe with time, she would come around once she actually met our children and saw that they were just kids who deserved love like any other kids. I asked Annabelle if she really believed Teresa was capable of changing after everything she'd already said and done, and she hesitated before saying honestly she didn't know, but she hoped so for everyone's sake. That hope felt thin and fragile, not something I could build a future on. But I thanked her for being honest with me and went home to wait for Damien, who had finally gone to his parents' house that afternoon to have this conversation with his mother, the one he'd been trying to have for days. He was there for 3 hours by the time I got home, then 4 hours, then 5. And I kept checking my phone waiting for updates. But he wasn't responding to my texts. When Damien finally came home, he looked completely exhausted, not angry anymore, just drained like he'd been through something that took everything out of him. He sat down on the couch and I sat next to him, and he told me about the conversation starting from when he arrived, and his mother tried to act like everything was normal, offering him something to drink and asking about work, like they were just having a regular visit. He said he told her they needed to talk about what she said to me at the party, what she told me on that patio, and she immediately got defensive and asked what I claimed she said because she was sure it was a misunderstanding. He told her exactly what I'd reported. Damien said he told her I wasn't lying, and he believed me completely because he knew what kind of person I was, and he was starting to see what kind of person she was. And that's when she changed tactics and started getting upset, saying he was choosing to believe a woman he'd known for 4 years over his own mother who raised him for 31 years. He said she started going on about how much she'd sacrificed for him, how many nights she'd stayed up worrying about him, how she'd put her whole life into being a good mother, and this was how he repaid her, by taking my side against her. He told her this wasn't about sides, this was about whether she could treat his future children with basic decency. And she started crying and saying she was sorry if her words came out wrong, that of course she would love any grandchildren, she was just worried. Worried about him, worried he was making a mistake he would regret, worried that adoption would be harder than he realized, and it would put stress on our marriage. He asked her point blank if she would treat our adopted children exactly the same as Annabelle's biological children, give them the same love and attention and presence and time, and she hesitated before answering, which told him everything he needed to know. Then she said she would try, that she couldn't promise to feel the same way because feelings weren't something you could force, but she would try her best to treat them equally. Try. She would try not to make innocent children feel like they were less than their cousins. Damien said he told her trying wasn't good enough, that if she couldn't commit to loving his children fully, then maybe she shouldn't be in their lives at all. And she lost it completely at that point. She started saying he was abandoning his family for me, that I'd poisoned him against her, that I was manipulative and had somehow convinced him to turn his back on the people who actually loved him. She said I would never love him the way his family did, that I was just using him because I couldn't do better with my condition, and that someday he would see through me and come crawling back to her, but by then it might be too late. Damien said he told her to stop, that she was proving his point about why she shouldn't be around our children if this was how she talked about their mother, and she said fine. If that's how he felt, then maybe she wouldn't come to the wedding at all. He said he told her that was her choice, but if she did come, she needed to behave. No comments about adoption, no treating me differently, no making scenes, and if she couldn't agree to that, then maybe she should stay home. She asked if he was seriously disinviting his own mother from his wedding, and he said no. He was telling her the conditions for her attendance and she could decide whether to accept them. She didn't say anything after that, just sat there crying, and eventually he left because there was nothing else to say. When he finished telling me all of this, I didn't know what to feel, because part of me was proud of him for standing up for me and our future family. Part of me was devastated that it had come to this, and part of me was terrified about what comes next. Last night I asked Damien if maybe we should postpone the wedding, give everyone time to cool down, see if his mom actually comes around once she has space to think about things, and he said absolutely not, because postponing would be giving her exactly what she wanted, letting her control our timeline, and he said we were getting married in 4 months and his mother could figure out her feelings on her own time. I want to believe he's right, but I'm scared of so many things right now. What if she never comes around and this is our life forever? What if our children grow up knowing their grandmother thinks they're less than? What if Damien wakes up one day 5 or 10 years from now and realizes he gave up his relationship with his family for me and starts to resent me for it? He keeps telling me he won't, keeps telling me he loves me and he's choosing me and our future family, whatever it looks like. But I saw his face when he came home from that conversation with his mother, and I know this is breaking something inside him even if he won't admit it. 4 months until the wedding. His mother's RSVP is still pending, and I have no idea what happens next. I'll update when there's more to tell. Final update. So the wedding happened, and I need to tell you everything because what went down was absolutely insane. It's been 5 days since we got back from our honeymoon. After my last update, things got worse before they got better. Teresa finally sent her RSVP about 3 weeks before the wedding, and she checked yes, she was coming with Harold as her +1. And I honestly didn't know how to feel about it because part of me wanted her there, so Damien wouldn't have that guilt hanging over him forever. But part of me was terrified of what she might do. Damien called her after we got the RSVP to confirm she understood the conditions. No comments about adoption, no treating me differently, no making scenes. And she said she understood and she just wanted to be there for her son's wedding and she would behave herself. I didn't believe her for a second, but what was I supposed to do? Tell Damien to uninvite his mother after she'd agreed to the conditions? So I just tried to focus on the wedding and hoped for the best. The ceremony was beautiful. We had it at this venue outside of town with string lights and flowers everywhere. And when I walked down the aisle and saw Damien waiting for me, I forgot about Teresa for a few minutes. Forgot about the $50,000 and the defective comments and all of it, and just focused on the man I was marrying and the life we were building together. Teresa sat in the front row with Harold and she was crying, which could have been happy tears or devastated tears. I honestly couldn't tell, and I didn't care because I was getting married to the love of my life, and she could feel however she wanted about it. The reception is where everything fell apart. We'd been there maybe 2 hours, had done the first dance and the toasts, and were just starting to relax and enjoy ourselves when I went to the bathroom and ran into Teresa in the hallway outside. She was standing there like she'd been waiting for me, and when she saw me, she stepped directly into my path so I couldn't get around her without physically pushing past her. She said she needed to talk to me alone for just a minute, mother to daughter-in-law, and I told her whatever she had to say could wait until after the wedding. But she grabbed my arm and said no, it couldn't wait because she needed me to understand something before I officially became part of this family. She said she'd done a lot of thinking over the past few months, and she realized she'd handled things wrong from the beginning. She said the $50,000 was a mistake. She shouldn't have tried to buy me off, and she was sorry for the words she used because defective and damaged goods were cruel and she shouldn't have said them. I was actually stunned because I thought she was genuinely apologizing until she kept talking. She said, however, and there's always a however with her, she still believed what she believed about adoption and biology and family. And she needed me to know that even though she would be polite and civil, she would never feel the same way about my adopted children as she felt about Annabelle's biological children. She said she was telling me this now so there would be no confusion later, so I couldn't claim she'd misled me or pretended to accept something she didn't accept. She said she wanted our relationship to be built on honesty, even if that honesty was painful. I told her this wasn't honesty, this was cruelty dressed up as honesty, and there was a difference between being truthful and using the truth as a weapon to hurt people. I told her she could have kept her opinions to herself and just treated our children with love and kindness regardless of how she felt inside, but instead she was choosing to announce her prejudice like it was something noble. She said I was naive if I thought feelings could be hidden forever, that children could sense these things and it was better to be upfront now than to have it come out later in ways that caused more damage. She said she was actually doing me a favor by being clear about where she stood. I told her the only favor she could do me was staying the hell away from my future children if she couldn't love them properly. And she said that was exactly what she expected me to say because I'd been trying to isolate Damien from his family since the beginning. She said I was threatened by her because I knew deep down that Damien would always love his mother, and I couldn't compete with that bond, so I was trying to destroy it instead. I told her she was delusional if she thought I was threatened by her, that the only person destroying her bond with Damien was her through her own cruelty and manipulation, and I was done having this conversation on my wedding day. I tried to walk past her, but she grabbed my arm again and said she wasn't finished. That's when Damien appeared at the end of the hallway and saw his mother gripping my arm and me trying to pull away, and he came over immediately asking what was going on. I told him his mother had cornered me to inform me one more time that she would never accept our adopted children, and she wanted to make sure I knew that before I officially joined the family. Damien turned to his mother and asked if that was true, if she'd really waited until our wedding day to say this, and she started doing her thing where she cried and said she was just trying to be honest and she didn't want there to be secrets between us. He told her there was a difference between honesty and sabotage, and she knew exactly what she was doing by pulling this on our wedding day, when we should have been celebrating. She said she was sorry the timing was bad, but she felt like she needed to clear the air, and Damien told her to leave. Just like that. Told his own mother to leave his wedding reception. She started sobbing and saying he was making a scene and everyone would see and think she'd done something terrible, and he said she had done something terrible, and if people saw her leaving, that was her problem, not his. Harold appeared then, probably looking for Teresa, and saw the three of us in the hallway with Teresa crying and Damien furious, and me standing there in my wedding dress just wanting this to be over. Harold asked what happened, and Damien told him his mother had just informed me she would never accept our adopted children, and she did it today, on our wedding day, after promising to behave herself. Harold looked at Teresa and asked if that was true, and she said she was just being honest and Damien was overreacting. Harold stood there for a long moment, and then he said he was sorry, to both of us, and he took Teresa by the arm and said they were leaving. Teresa started protesting, saying she didn't want to leave, saying Damien was going to regret kicking her out of his own wedding, but Harold just kept walking her toward the exit while she cried the whole way. We went back to the reception, and I won't pretend I wasn't shaken, but Miriam saw my face and came over immediately, and I told her what happened, and she hugged me and said, Teresa was a miserable woman who couldn't stand to see her son happy. Damien and I danced and ate cake and took photos and tried to salvage the rest of the night, and honestly, it was still beautiful despite what happened because we were surrounded by people who actually loved us and wanted us to be happy. We went on our honeymoon to this cabin in the mountains where we turned off our phones for a week and just existed together without any drama or family or bullshit. It was perfect. When we got back, there were voicemails from Harold saying he wanted to talk, saying he was sorry about Teresa's behavior, saying he hoped we could all move past this eventually. Damien hasn't called him back yet. He says he needs more time. As for me, I'm done. I told Damien I don't want a relationship with his mother. Not now, maybe not ever. I told him if he wants to maintain a relationship with her, that's his choice, and I won't stop him, but I won't be part of it, and our future children won't be part of it either. He said he understood and he supported me completely. So that's where we are. Married, happy, building our life together. And his mother is on the outside looking in because she couldn't accept that her son chose me, the woman she tried to buy off for $50,000, the woman she called defective and damaged goods, the woman who can't have biological children but will love our adopted children with everything she has. Teresa wanted me gone. Instead, I'm permanent, and she has to live with that.